Pause. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Carolina Weather Group. We are happy to have you tonight. It's Wednesday, August 23rd, 2017, rounding out the month of August. We hope that you've had a great week so far. I think all of us have. I think we're pretty geeked out already starting Monday with the eclipse, and now with the potential tropics going on. It has been a very busy week for us all, and we're going to talk a little bit about both of those tonight. So before we do that, this is a live broadcast, so if you are watching tonight and you have any questions, please feel free to send them our way via Twitter or Facebook Live or Periscope or all the other platforms that we're on. We'll be sure to be monitoring those and answer them as they come in. And if you're listening on the rebroadcast, well, I don't think we have any guests tonight, so you know how to get in touch with us on Twitter, so you can do that as well. So that's right, we did. Let's start. I guess we'll talk about locally what's been going on the last day or so. I know it was pretty active in the Charlotte area today, so I'll bring in James Brierton, who lives in the Queen City. James, you guys had a little bit of severe thunderstorm action today.
Yes, it absolutely is. If you don't have that app yet, you need to go ahead and get it. Free download to get the information there that James is showing to you, and then you can get your severe weather alerts. You can get tropical alerts. We might have a discussion about that tonight, but you can get tropical alerts off of there, severe thunderstorms, flash floods, all that good stuff for your specific location. So make sure that you download that and use the promo code Carolina, and that'll help us out too. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and as we are talking about that cold front, we'll have something to do with the tropics. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But that cold front, not only advancing through eastern North Carolina and the northeastern part of South Carolina, but also the Charleston area. Let's bring in Jared Smith, who is in Charleston tonight. I will say Shay Gibson is out of town, so Jared's kind of pitch hitting for Shay tonight, giving us the scoop on what's going on in Charleston. Jared, what's going on down there in the low country?
It's hot. Still hot and humid, but so it goes. Got a thunderstorm rolling through right now. Let me if you guys don't mind, I might share my screen real quick. Let me do that. Got a thunderstorm rolling through just north of here. I'm in the West Ashley part of town. Here's Ridgeville and Monk's Corner and Goose Creek, and this guy's moving east northeast. Got some nice tops with it. So what was cool was that it was casting some really neat shadows this evening, some cool crepuscular rays. I can never say that right. And good viewing along the beaches, and yet another good rain for the folks in Dorchester and Berkeley counties, where They got absolutely no eclipse whatsoever. So it goes. Feel bad for them. But you know, just more heat and humidity. Looking forward to getting a little frontal action later this week and starting to bring those temperatures down. Although it'll be interesting along the coast to see what happens. You know, we have a couple models trying to spin something up out there, and that'll help reinforce a northeast wedge and cool us off quite nicely. Get those dew points down back to tolerable levels, and but we'll just see how that goes. Model system, you know, models this far out still.
All right. Thanks, Jared. I want to toss it to Eric, and then I'll bring it to Ricky. So Ricky was one of our guys who was actually on the road to cover the eclipse. We'll talk about that first. So before we get to Ricky, let's toss it to Eric. And Eric, you guys already had this cold front move through. How's the weather been treating you guys today?
It is beautiful. We're so thankful that we had that cold front come through yesterday. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and share. We're going to geek out here for just a minute with service plot. If you look down to our south, there's upper 80s to 90 and dew points in the mid 70s. That was our air mass yesterday. Heat index was up around 103, 104 the last couple of days. We promised a big cold front. It came through last night. Some folks got some rain. I didn't get anything here. It kind of was just scattered along the front until it got down in North Mississippi, and then filled in a little bit. Folks down there got a little bit more rain, but you'll notice behind this front, all of the wind barbs coming out of the north, loving that this time of year. And the dew point at the top of the hour here in Memphis is down to 63. I see a bunch of 50s up to our north. Looks like we are going to stay at least until something from the south comes in, and we'll be watching closely what's going on down to the south with Harvey. But for the next few days, beautiful weather here in Memphis. Mid 80s for highs, 85 today. Looks like a fair amount of sunshine, and dew points maybe in the upper 50s. We'll get some cool mornings. Really been looking forward to this, and looking at the long range 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks from CPC. We've been sitting in blue for the early part of September too, so I'm really liking what's coming forward. We may not have to talk about the heat index again this summer, and I'd just be so thankful for that.
All right, Eric. Thank you for that report. And sending that cold front to the east, Ricky Matthews, who was in the Bristol, Tennessee area tonight. Ricky, you guys as well had the cold front move through. So how's things up in the eastern Tennessee area?
Pretty refreshing tonight. I took Forrest out for a walk earlier, and it was a nice evening. Temperatures still like in the upper 70s, low 80s, but low humidity. That was the nice thing, Scotty. Even though it was very, very hot on Monday. We kind of wish that front had come through a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it was extremely hot. I think at one time the heat index was close to 100 for a lot of locations in the path of totality. So let's go ahead and talk about the eclipse. You was heading out of the Bristol, Tennessee area to go to, I think it was Athens, Tennessee. You were in the path of totality. So how was it for you? I know for all of us in our little chat, we were just kind of geeking out this week. Tell us about the experience there in Athens, Tennessee.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. We drove down Sunday night, got to Athens around 12:30 in the morning after a little mishap with some vehicle issues. So that was part one of the fun. But anyway, we got up Monday morning and went over to McMinn County Central High School, located between Etowah and Englewood, two small communities in McMinn County. Put on our eclipse classes just like James there, and had a lot of fun viewing the eclipse. We got to talk to some people. They had people there from all across the country, people from England, people from France, people from Germany. One of the students there was from Brazil. So, I mean, it really was almost a worldwide event, and I see our entire panel has found their eclipse classes now. This is going well. Those things are collector's items too. Like if you save those till 2024, I hear you can make like $50 off them. But anyway, we'll get to that later. So it was really just a cool experience. It's hard to describe what it's like, but the coolest thing, Scotty, was probably when we took off our glasses after watching the last little bit of sun disappear and hearing my co-anchor's reaction and hearing, and for me, seeing the darkness, being in darkness at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
It was really crazy. I was just to your east, maybe about 100 miles or so in the upstate of South Carolina near Pickens. So I think we were almost kind of time-wise, maybe just a minute or two after you. And like you said, it was nothing I've ever experienced. Seeing Let's go from sunny conditions to complete darkness for a little over 2 minutes, and then right back to the sunshine. It was crazy. I've never experienced anything like that, and I think it'll be welded into my memory from here on out. It was just a crazy experience, and I know, James, you guys in Charlotte, not totally in totality, but about 99%. How was your experience there in the Queen City?
The full totality. I think my guests and I, who, as you may have saw on our Facebook page, they had driven all the way from Pennsylvania. So the idea of driving 2 more hours into grid lap traffic in Columbia was certainly not the most fun sounding thing. But I will say I think there was less catastrophic traffic than everyone feared. So maybe next time we will drive directly into the path and get the full show. Scotty?
Yeah, we'll talk about maybe the effects of traffic and the weather here in just a second. I want to get everybody's perspective first. Jared, you was in Charleston. You were the last, city to see the totality before it moved out into Atlantic Ocean. And you guys were also dealing with some thunderstorm action.
Oh, we were. And, first thing is, if my parents are watching, I'm sorry. I feel so bad for them. They are in Goose Creek. They're about 15 miles northeast of me, and they got a thunderstorm the entire time. In fact, we had a station record over 4 inches of rain in a little over an hour in Goose Creek. A little deep breeze convergence, and then stalled frontal system just interacting, just making things miserable there. So people in Somerville and Goose Creek in those areas, they don't like me right now. I hope they'll find it in their heart to forgive me. We got totality, and I was able to see it. We had a thunderstorm, like you could see the cumulus developing just over my roof of my house, and it was coming fast. Like within 10 minutes after everything was done, the sky just opened up. It was like, okay, yeah, no more viewing for you. Get inside. But I'm gonna share real quick. I want to share. I managed to get a picture of totality with my iPhone, which was actually rather shocking. And I don't know why I can't get, all right, well, nothing embarrassing on this screen. Cool. All right, let's just do that. And yeah, I managed to get this sucker on my phone. And this guy too. Not too bad. It was awesome. I don't think I've ever seen something so cool, guys. I really don't. It is... I see a lot of cool clouds every day. I see a lot of things that I find interesting, but man, that was something. But again, I feel bad for the people who weren't able to see it. They did see darkness. There were some really cool shots of lightning in the middle of the midday darkness, and it was fascinating to see some of the cloudiness deteriorate and dissipate as it went. A couple other things that Shay, I talked to Shay earlier, and we were chatting about. In fact, I might take my screen again here real quick. A couple things we were talking about. He noticed some interesting things on some of the wind sensors at the onset of totality. There's your totality. I don't. Oh yeah, you can see my mouse pointer. Look at that uptick. Look at that uptick in the wind. I'll switch to this, and you see this little kick up around 2-3 o'clock, right here, and you see the wind direction turn southeast on Sullivan's Island. It was very fascinating. Here's the Isle of Palms Pier. Winds are coming out of the east, and then they turn southeast. Very, very interesting.
I wonder, Jared, if that had anything to do with the temperature difference. I mean, as the temperature, rapidly fell, and then it's almost like a mini sea breeze, mesoscale kind of induced thing.
Yeah, definitely, and it was kind of a shame that we had all those thunderstorms in the area, because Charleston was doing they were doing special launches from the Weather Service office there. So they had their array up station did a launch before, during, and after totality, but unfortunately, a lot of those launches came up kind of short because they were essentially launching into thunderstorms at that point. So that was kind of a shame. We really couldn't get an uncontaminated look at the difference in temperature, but I will say anecdotally that it did feel cooler. I certainly agree that definitely the temperature difference had something to do with it. It might have might have kicked on a little mesoscale sea breeze, might have kicked on maybe not a nocturnal jet. I don't think it would have decoupled that fast, but it was certainly very fascinating to see all these differences in the sensors. And one final thought: bug spray. I wish I had bug spray. Once totality hit, boom! I was mosquito food, and it was not pretty. It was like, oh look, that looks so great. That's awesome. And so I kept my wife and I kept just hitting each other, trying to get the mosquitoes off. And it's like, okay, all right, time to go in. Next time, 2024, we're doing off. But I'm definitely chasing it in 2024. There's no doubt about it. Scotty?
Yeah, thank you, Jared. Eric, I guess you were the furthest here on the panelists away from the path of totality, but you guys are still above 90% coverage there in the Memphis area.
Yeah, we got 93% here, and it was a very fascinating 93%. It was pretty amazing. I was kind of bummed that I didn't get out to a totality area. Work called, and so I had to stay. But I was able to get to the rooftop 3 or 4 times and get up there and get a good look at it, and really had a good event here for most of the area. We had this was, again, very hot, humid air mass on Monday. We got a couple of isolated thunderstorms that popped up right in the Memphis area. And unfortunately, there were some who were pretty much blocked for the whole event, or at least a good part of it, especially during the totality time. And that was, again, kind of a bummer for those that didn't get to see it, because I was kind of out west of the big clouds. It floated in and out of some little cumulus and stuff, but overall I had a pretty good view of it. I want to share a couple of things. One, the first one here is a shot that I took again from my phone. This was at totality and not real clear, but they said don't look at this thing without your glasses on, and I heeded that very closely until we got this nice little cloud cover that came right in front of it. And I noticed that even without my glasses on, I could look directly at it, and you probably wouldn't know that there was anything behind that cloud unless it was really bright. And in this case, it was a 7% crescent sun. It got very dim outside, very noticeably dim. And that's one shot that I got. The others that I tried to get through the solar filter on the back of my lens of the camera didn't come out nearly as good, but thought that was a pretty cool shot. This is another thing I found very interesting. Y'all check out this loop as it goes through. You see the cumulus field across the southeastern U.S. You see the eclipse come through, it dims, and when it comes back, the cumulus field is just about gone. I thought that was very fascinating. Really only 4 or 5 degrees of cooling in there, but it was enough to wipe out pretty much all of the cumulus except for the larger tops, the ones that you can see right there around the Memphis area in the middle. You can see where those storms popped up right around here. But outside of those, it took another, it was probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon before that cumulus field kind of filled back in across the southeast U.S. So I thought that was another real fascinating result of that. This is a picture that came out of Nashville from one of my interns here at MemphisWeather.net. Took the trip from Mississippi State up to Nashville. This was at totality in Nashville. I think James that was mentioning the kind of the sunset or sunrise all around, the yellowish color. It's exactly what they had. You see all the city lights are on there in Nashville. Beautiful shot. So anyway, it was quite the event. Certainly glad that I got to experience it and stayed outside of the thunderstorms that were around here. And like Jared, I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and put in my vacation for April 8th of 2024. I got to go see this for real.
And one good thing about that, Eric, is totality really doesn't pass far from you in 2024.
No, actually, we're a little bit closer. We're at 97% in 2024. It's going to go right over Little Rock. Will be about our closest point. So that's a 3-hour drive over I-40 to get over there, and should be should be not bad at all. So look forward to it.
Yeah, and Eric, you were talking about even with that satellite imagery, and I'll bring Ricky in. We were talking about this before the show started. His location, my location, kind of around the mountains. We always get cloud development there in the afternoons, but it was really neat to see visually. You know, you go throughout the day, it started off clear, and then you start to see the cumulus develop around 12, 1 o'clock. And, you know, as it was approaching 1:30, 1:40, 1:45, and these clouds are around, you're like, oh my gosh, you know, this could end up not being so well. But around 2 o'clock, once the sun had really started being covered up by the moon, you started to see those cumulus dissipate, and around totality, I mean, there was hardly any clouds in the sky. So that was really interesting to see. I know where I was at, I had a little thermometer with us. We got up to 86 degrees, and as totality was happening, we dropped down to 78. So that was a nice little spread there in the temperature. And, you know, maybe an hour later, it was probably already back up to 85, 86 degrees. So it was pretty cool to see the drop in temperature and the decrease in cloud cover.
And Scotty, if you can go ahead and pop my screen up for just a second, I want to show exactly what Eric was describing from satellite from a ground view. So if you were following us on Facebook, here I am in Charlotte. You can see the clouds behind me, right? So this is like 1:30. Let's fast forward an hour. The eclipse in progress. Not a cloud in the sky.
It was amazing. Awesome. And James, you were talking about it, and that's something that amazed me was, you know, what the 1 to 2% of sunshine, how much light we really got from that. It was amazing. I don't know if anybody else caught it. Did you guys see the crescent-shaped shadows throughout the area where you guys were?
Not here.
Yeah, because I didn't look for them. I didn't have any trees nearby, but we did see pictures from our station and everywhere else. Pretty cool stuff.
I stole a joke from somebody else. I won't give credit, I guess, but anyway, it said don't use your colander to view the eclipse because you might strain your eyes. and actually the colander came in really handy because the colander really did show all of the little crescents coming through the holes onto the ground. So it was really actually, you really needed to have your colander handy. It didn't strain my eyes a bit.
I am looking through my Facebook page here. Let me pop this up. And I will show you guys. I did happen to get a picture of the crescent-shaped shadows.
When you're done doing that, Scotty, can you unpresent me? I'm still staring at the YouTube audience. Hey, guys!
Yes, I will do that right now.
Thank you.
As you can tell, I'm not used to doing this. This is all Shay stuff, so just bear with me for just a moment. And
I can do this, Scotty, while you're doing that. If anybody missed the eclipse or wants to watch it again, head on over to CarolinaWeatherGroup.com because we have the replay for you, and I've got it right at the point where it's coming into the Carolinas. So if you want to watch the point where it goes over the Smokies up to Charleston, it's queued up and ready to go just for you.
Awesome. Can you guys see my photo now?
Yes.
All right, and you can see the crescent-shaped shadows. I thought that was really neat.
Cool.
One other thing that I noticed, and we'll get on to the tropics, and I wanted to get your opinion, especially James. You were close enough, and Ricky and Jared, I wanted to get your opinion as well. Was the changes in the animals? I noticed once we started getting darker, the crickets started coming out. We actually had this goose that was in the state park. He was kind of, I want to say he was tame, but he was used to people and was kind of hanging around. And I noticed as it kept getting darker and darker until we got totally dark, he kind of floated off to wherever his home is. And then when the sun came back out, you saw him come back across the lake. So it was really cool to see how nature really responded to that as well. I was
atop of a parking deck. I didn't have anything. Eric?
Oh, I saw a video of the zoo in Nashville and the flamingos. The flamingos didn't know what to do. They got confused and they started kind of huddling together, and it was like they were sensing something was, maybe they thought it was bedtime or feeding time or something like that, but they definitely reacted.
Main thing I noticed was the crickets and cicadas. I think I was so caught up in the moment I didn't really pay attention to birds and animals and stuff, but my co-anchor pointed them out. She's like, you can hear the crickets. I'm like, oh yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, the crickets, cicadas, mosquitoes. We were back with their dogs my dachshund barked at it, which is what, I mean, that's what dachshunds do. And the beagle was like, oh, it's feeding time. So it was pretty uneventful, but still very cool.
Very cool. Well, we'll kind of transition off that. Hope he's able to enjoy it wherever you was. And like James said, please visit our website. You can kind of recap everything through there and kind of get that perspective. I'm going to toss it to Ricky now as we transition into the tropics. I know, Ricky, this is kind of like one of your things you love, talking about the tropics. And looks like Harvey has regenerated in the Gulf and could cause some issues in the Texas area.
Yeah, the ghost of Harvey coming back for its revenge, or maybe the storm really kind of shocked us. It dissipated there as it went into the Caribbean, and I wasn't paying much attention to it, to be honest with you. And I was like, oh, remnants of Harvey. Goodbye, Harvey. And then it popped back up here the past couple of days. So let me share a screen with you, and we'll show you a few things of what Harvey is doing now. An interesting little storm here. Not a whole lot of thunderstorm activity associated with it. You see some of the higher cloud tops there as the sun sets. We'll switch to the infrared version. Once again, you can see some of those tall thunderstorms, mainly on the south and east side of the center, and also displaced away from the center of the storm, telling you that it's not the best organized system in the world, hence why it's just a tropical depression right now. But even dependent on what strength it gets as it gets closer to the Texas coast, which is where we do expect this system to move to, according to the National Hurricane Center's forecast for Harvey, heading towards the Florida coastline as you go into the Friday night, Saturday timeframe. I think the main issue with this is going to be that heavy rainfall. And let's show you a few different things here. We'll talk about the intensity first, because there's a large area shear north of the center. Let me show you where the center is right now. We'll put the track on. So there's the center. If you can see a little L right there, that's the center of Tropical Depression Harvey. And the system is expected to track off towards the north and west as we go over the next couple of days. You see the shear up to the northeast side of it, but really what you're seeing is just the cloud tops being blown off as a result of that. And the system is probably going to stay in an area of relatively weak shear, about 10 to 15 knots. And it's also going to move over an area where there's a decent amount of warm water. Look at the warm bathtub-like waters of the western Gulf of Mexico, greater than 31 degrees Celsius in a lot of this area. And you look at the ocean heat content, and there's a nice area of above normal ocean heat content right in the path of where the system is expected to go. So as Harvey tracks off to the north and west, it's going to hit that, and that could mean some pretty strong strengthening. Here is the, there's the spaghetti plots first. Almost all the models are locked on taking it off to the north and west. And it makes sense when you look at the global models and the kind of the positioning of the highs and lows and stuff like that. But when you look at the intensity modeling, most of them get it up to a strong tropical storm, weak category 1. Hurricane Center is still expecting it to be a category 1 at landfall. But guys, here's the interesting thing with this system. Let's play the GFS here. And let me go into an MSLP and preset mode. And we'll just loop this over time. So there we go into Friday afternoon, and Harvey's approaching the southern Texas coastline. Likely it's a strong tropical storm, weak hurricane, 979 millibars. That converts over to roughly, what is that? A very weak category 1 hurricane, 974, 973. And then as the system kind of moves inland, it gets blocked by 2 areas of high pressure. Let's switch over to the upper dynamics here, and we'll show you the 500 millibar height pattern. And you've got an area, we'll see if this drawing thing works here. We've got an area of high pressure over the western United States and the ridge associated with that. And then over Florida here, we've got another area of high pressure. And watch what happens as we continue to go out in time with this. Basically, those two systems act as steering flow for Harvey, and very minimal steering flow at that. So Harvey kind of gets stuck there for a couple of days, and then eventually some of the energy associated with it gets transported into the southeast, resulting in some rainfall for the Alabama, probably Georgia, South Carolina area. But that model is a little bit too far out to be trusted. But the thing about this is, I mean, you could be dealing with 10, 15, 20 inches of rain across the Texas coastline. It reminds me a little bit of, what was the A storm? Allison? Was that it? Do you guys remember? I think it was Allison back in, was it 2002?
Yeah, I believe so.
it's been a while, but there was that storm that came into Texas area and then got blocked by a couple areas of high pressure and basically just sat there and rained and rained and rained and rained and rained until it almost rained itself out. And with the Gulf of Mexico there and that nice moist flow off the Gulf, it's going to have an easy time bringing some moisture up. I want to show you this too. This is the NAM3. Yeah, this is why you don't use the NAM3 for tropical forecasting. That's a Cat 5 hurricane it's trying to point out there, going into the Texas coastline Friday. I doubt that happens. You could have maybe a rapid intensification of the system's not out of question, but I seriously doubt it becomes a Cat 5. And so this tweet by Caleb earlier was interesting. Basically, they made some changes to the NAM3 recently, trying to make it better for coastline visibility, ceiling, and visibility forecasts for like aviation. And as a result of that, they've made it horrible for the deepening of tropical cyclones. So keep that in mind next time you want to share a NAM3 graphic, or better yet, an HRRR graphic with a tropical cyclone.
Yeah, and Ricky, it looks like the National Weather or the National Hurricane Center has already started issuing advisories. I think there's a hurricane watch for big portion of the Texas coast, and also one thing, the storm surge graphics. I think we've got storm surge watches and advisories as well up for that area. Yeah, hurricane watch is up for a decent part of the coastline there of Texas. I think it's been 3,000 days too, if I remember correctly from a tweet I saw earlier today. I saw that. That's correct. Since hurricane watches was issued, I think it was Ike was the last one when a watch came out. So neat little tidbit there. But the hurricane watch is up for the Florida coastline, or Texas coastline, excuse me. And there's tropical storm watches on either side of that. Look at that cone of uncertainty, though. When it's an incomplete circle, day 3, 4, and 5. That's just ironic stuff there. Storm surge watch that you're talking about, Scotty. Let's go to the public advisory here, because I think this does a better job talking about storm surge than the watches and warnings do at this time. So Port Mansfield to High Island, potentially 4 to 6 feet above ground level at the peak of the storm if it hits at high tide, which with tropical forecasting, it's always a very tricky thing to try and predict the amount of storm surge. And it's highly dependent on several things, as you know, Jared, along the coastline there of South Carolina. You know, the storm happens to come in at low tide versus high tide, or comes in at one of those full moons versus, you know, moon cycle that's a new moon. You can have a significant difference in your tidal inundation.
Oh, we were so lucky that Matthew came ashore at low tide and made its closest approach. It came ashore in McClellanville, but oh man, did we dodge a bullet there. That would have been Hugo level surge had it come ashore at high tide.
Mm-hmm. Here's the WPC rainfall guidance, guys. Over 10 inches across a wide path from Tropical Depression Harvey. That's the interesting thing. When's the last time you guys can remember a system that was a tropical storm dissipating and then being renamed as a tropical depression? It's been a while, I bet.
It has, yeah.
I know Ivan did it back in 2004, but I can't remember if there were any storms before that.
Well, we've seen, not in the same basin, but we've seen some that have been a storm in the Caribbean or in the Gulf and then crossed Mexico and become a new name in the Pacific. That's happened. But yeah, this is pretty unusual.
And there's one thing, as we've all seen, you know, us weather guys, is the potential for flooding, especially in Houston, Texas. You know, Houston's always it seems like ground zero for flooding. And again, 10, 15 inches of rain is going to do some serious trouble down in that area as well. I see Ricky's got a weather barrel up. I've seen a tweet this afternoon, and I wanted to share that with you, kind of talking about the flooding along the Texas coast. So let me pull that up while Ricky talks about these models right here.
I pulled up the European model here, which has a slightly different forecast than the GFS model does. On its initial path, it kind of takes Harvey even further south into Texas coastline there. Still lingers it around for a few days. In fact, here we go into Monday, Tuesday, takes it back off the coast and re-strengthens it into another Category 1 hurricane, and then makes a second landfall on the coast there of Louisiana, which would result in some pretty significant flooding and tidal flooding inundation potentially for the Louisiana coastline, which they don't need because you guys have probably seen the stories out of New Orleans talking about the pumps and how the pumps are all damaged down there and inoperational. So that could be a big issue if the system decides to track this way. And let's take a wider zoom of this, because the European model, this is the 12Z run of the Euro, takes it much further west than GFS did, which is interesting when we talk about severe weather potential in South Carolina and North Carolina and along the East Coast, because we always talk about that right front quadrant and the potential for strong storms and potential tornadoes in that area where there's a little bit more spin across the northeast quadrant of these systems. So it's an interesting track.
And talking about that flooding threat, this is from Brian Wood on Twitter. This is kind of showing percentages of people who have flood insurance along the coast of Texas. As you can see, right there along the coast, some fairly good numbers, 48%, 22%, 26%. But as you go inland, the next row of counties, you know, we're looking at 1.51%, 3.55%, 5.40%, you know, over here, 3%. So as this transitions into the late weekend into early next week, this could be a story as well as the flooding and just how many people who are not prepared for it in the Texas area. So we could hear, you know, I don't want to say Hurricane Matthew numbers, but again, you know, we could see some similarities between what happened in eastern North Carolina last year to what's going on along the Texas coast this week.
You're not wrong. I mean, it certainly is a troubling stat, but think about it. I mean, how many people take the flood risk seriously away from storm surge? If you don't live right next to a river, when's the last time you probably thought about flooding in your neighborhood? So, I mean, I totally see why those numbers are so low. I don't have flood insurance. We don't have flood insurance. I live in the city of Hampton, and I live a couple miles inland from the coast. I mean, it's just, we're not technically in a very high-risk flood zone, but if we got a Cat 2, Cat 3 hurricane, we would be.
Besides the potential for a double landfall with this, which is just kind of crazy to think about, I think water is going to be the story that we're hearing most about a week from now. You know, those places in South Texas, that's, you know, those are places where a couple of inches of rain is going to cause just all kinds of problems. And if this thing sits down there like it's supposed to, that's going to be devastating for some areas. And if it goes a little bit farther to the north, you know, the Houston area can't deal with 10, 15 or more. I mean, some of the model numbers coming out are just crazy for how much rain. And if you take whatever the 36 inches max that's predicted by the earlier Euro model and cut it in half, say it's twice as wrong, you know, 18 inches is just way more than they can take. So
let me show you a few different maps that I pulled up here. This is and it's very hard to see. Let's see if I can't turn on the states. There we go. There's Texas, if you can see it. Right where my mouse is, that's the Texas coastline there. This is the rainfall over the past 30 days across Texas. And parts of Houston have seen over 10 inches of rain in those past 30 days. So compile that on top of potential rain you could get. And they're not in a drought at all. Here's the drought monitor across the southeast United States, or south central United States. You notice Texas, parts of it in a abnormally dry condition level, but most of the state is doing pretty well in terms of rainfall this year. So not like they, quote, need the rain.
I bet you say that map looks a lot different here in a couple of weeks. I bet it's gone. Oh.
And let's kind of shift a little bit off of this right quick. And I want to toss it to Jared, because Jared, there's also another tropical system, Invest. I don't even know the number of it. What is it, 91, 92, I think?
I can't keep it straight anymore.
I think it went away, though. I mean, the area is still there, but I think the Invest went away, Jared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it did. Haven't heard much on it. I mean, I'm looking, you know, I've got the GFS up on AWIPS. I'm using AWIPS. It's great, by the way. But it's great when it works. And yeah, I mean, it run to run, I'm looking at 18Z right now, and let's really geek out. Here we go. All right. There it is. There's AWIPS and all of its Java glory. So here's a little 4 panel here. This is 18Z run. This is overnight Tuesday. Yeah, a little pressure wants to spin up here and help strengthen northeast flow, but it looks like it's going to keep a lot of this rain offshore. Now, this is, children, hide your eyes. I mean, this really deepens. That escalated quickly. This really deepens very quickly as it gets up there. I think 150 hours out, maybe a little voodoo land there, but. Yeah, you know, it's what it's going to do. It's going to keep some showers along the coast, and the other nice thing is that it's going to help suck in a little bit of drier air, a little bit of cooler air. So, usually these coastal things, I mean, the major concern I would have is, you know, getting a little concerned about rip currents. You know, it's still that time of year where people will be out on the beaches. But you know, I mean. Give me 82, give me 81 for highs. You know, I'll take a little wedge. I'll take a little wedge at the end of August. Absolutely, just don't give it to me in yeah, don't give it to me in December, but give it to me now, please.
We have a viewer question from Craig Cece. He said, "Do you see the potential for some high-end rapid intensification as Harvey comes ashore?" Ricky, I know you kind of noted that a little bit, that we could see some intensification, but how rapid do you guys think it'll be as it interacts with those warm waters?
It would not shock me if this thing goes, I mean, it's a tropical depression now with winds, I want to say 30 miles per hour, maybe 35. Let's see what it is. Last update, which came out at 8 o'clock, had winds maximum sustained at 35 miles per hour. So, I mean, it's not that far away from tropical storm strength. The SHIPS model, which is great for determining the potential for rapid intensification, showed the potential of that earlier. Let me just see if I can't pull up the tweet here. But there's my account information in case you're interested in my Twitter account information. Let's see. There we go. There I am. Scroll down. There it is. This is from our buddy Michael Lowry. This is the SHIPS probability of rapid intensification of a certain amount of knots in a time period. So you look at the ship's probs for 65 knots within 72 hours and 62% probability of that. And that's 10.3 times the normal value of what that is. So that's an interesting number when you look at the rapid intensification potential. I wouldn't be shocked if this thing becomes at least a Cat 1 hurricane as it approaches the Texas coastline. It's going to struggle for a while, but when it hits that little loop current that's out there, little eddy of the loop current, it's in that weak shear environment. It's got good, you know, flow in the upper levels from those area high pressure. It's going to be an interesting little storm to watch. It'll be great to watch it on Ghost 16. I don't think I ever presented my screen. Let me try to present that number to you. Let me show you what I was trying to talk about. But there's the bottom there with highlighted stuff is the ship's probability of rapid intensification for 65 knots within a 72-hour period. About 62% probability of that, and that's 10.3 times the normal sample mean of that. So interesting numbers.
So yeah, it definitely could be. And as we are reaching the end of August, we are really quickly becoming into the peak of tropical season. Let's kind of talk about why that is, and then maybe what we can expect over the next couple of weeks as we wrap up tonight.
Yeah, you know, August, September, typically the highest peaks of hurricane season. September 10th is the climatological peak. And it really is just we get into a more favorable pattern as we get into the months of September. You get warmer waters across the MDR region where you typically get the storms to start going. We get a lot more potential Cape Verde storms as we go into that time period as well. So it'll be interesting to see as we go into the next couple of weeks what happens as we go. I see Michael's tweet pulled up there talking about the Madden-Julian oscillation. Sometimes you get these little, what's the word I'm looking for, little pulses almost to move across the Atlantic Basin, and you can get some better potential for tropical cyclones to spin up.
It is. So definitely want to watch that as we go into the next couple of weeks, especially on the coastal areas of North and South Carolina, as well as the Southeast and the Gulf Coast. So we'll have to see what Harvey does. Stay tuned to our social media accounts. As you guys know, Shay will update us throughout the duration of the storm. Tropics is his thing, and he'll be definitely sending out some updates. So continue to watch that. But we will kind of talk to you about we were supposed to have Reynolds Wolf and Mike Famoli on with us from the Weather Channel. The reason we're talking about Harvey tonight is because they've been sent to Texas to set up to talk about Harvey for the Weather Channel this weekend. That's why we kind of have thrown the eclipse and the tropic talk tonight. So we hope to have Reynolds and Mike on with us here in the next month or so as we kind of shuffle around and get our schedule out. So that is why if you were anticipating to see Reynolds and Mike tonight, that is why they're not on here. They are en route to Texas to cover whatever Harvey does bring to that area. So as that, we are closing in on the 9 o'clock hour. I do want to do a tweet of the week. Kind of let our panelists go around and talk about what they found interesting on Twitter tonight. Eric, have you got yours lined up? You ready? I think he is. You're on.
Yeah, okay. First, I have to unmute, then I can screen share. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'm going to stay on the tropics with my tweet of the week this week and go across the globe to Typhoon Hato, which was a storm that went basically just south of Hong Kong last night. And I'm sharing with you a tweet by Jim Eds at Extreme Storms. He runs extremestorms.com. He is a tropical chaser, and this is from last night. It's a screenshot of I guess FlightAware probably. Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. So there is a Amsterdam to Hong Kong flight that's attempting to land, and I looked at the wind speed at the time that this was passing. This was just before about 9 o'clock Central Time last night. So this morning over there, and the winds were gusting to 78 knots at that point. So I have no idea if that guy made it on the ground. I guess we would have heard about it if he made it in an unsafe fashion, but that's just crazy to watch that storm. Also, it went from a tropical storm to a minimal typhoon, Category 1, during the day yesterday, and working for FedEx, I know that we had to change some operations around a little bit over there because we were not going to do what that KLM flight was doing. We were avoiding the storm. So anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting to see some flight operations around Typhoon Hato on the Western Pacific.
That is scary. That's a scary looking flight.
There's got to be some YouTube video out there.
Nope. All right.
This is your captain speaking.
Comes from Weather Service.
Go ahead,
Chris talking about storms.
All right. Go ahead, Ricky.
I'm sorry. I said my tweet of the week comes from the Weather Service in Corpus Christi talking about forecast cones. I thought it was a neat little graphic that kind of summed everything up and showed it very well and what the cone's supposed to mean, what the cone isn't, and stuff like that. Nice little infographic to download and share again later.
All right. Let's go to Jared. Jared, do you have a tweet of the week?
I do. Let me go get that out for you. And we'll just, there we go. This comes from Reggie Fairchild over on Dewey's Island. Look at that shadow from that anvil. Just a nice little thunderstorm, nothing severe about it. Just, 40 miles off distance. And that is a really, really, really cool shadow that it's casting. So a lot of eclipse photos, but it's nice to change it back up a little bit for sure. So looks good.
All right, James Brierton, do you have a tweet of the week?
Yes, I will return us to the conversation of the eclipse, and if you can go ahead and pin up my second feed there. Thank you, Scotty. This is from Dwayne Scott, a photojournalist with NBC News. We talked earlier about those thunderstorms that rolled through the Charleston area, so of course this is a view there of that Charleston Harbor, and take a look at that lightning there, that lightning bolt striking off in the distance just as the eclipse was getting underway.
We'll say James just stole my tweet of the week. So
did I? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hold on.
Does it help that I know Dwayne?
Yeah, that we'll let that pass. I've got a backup for you. All right, here's my backup. This is from Kyle Roberts, a meteorologist in the Texas area. Kind of going back to the Harvey theme. I think this is a great way to communicate any threats, albeit tropical or winter weather or severe weather. But these are out on the DOT signs in Texas Right now, hurricane watch from Beaumont to Brownsville, and the next one is, I know it's hard to see, but it says travel to the Texas coast is discouraged. So again, that's a great way, I think, to communicate the threats. Not everyone traveling through the area may know that the hurricane's going on, so another great way to communicate those threats. And that from Kyle Roberts. So I guess, guys, that's it for Tweet of the Week, and that's it for the Carolina Weather Group. I do want to remind you, next week we are talking about 30% of confusion. Well, no, not really. 30% precipitation probability. Have you ever watched Ricky Forecast or any of us, and we say, hey, it's a 30% chance of rain, and it really does nothing. So that is the kind of the topic next week, kind of talking about what those percentages really mean. And Brad Panovich, chief meteorologist from NBC Charlotte, as well as Troy Kimmel, professor at the University of Texas, will be joining us to talk about those. And I'm sure Brad will still be geeking out about the eclipse last week as well. Then after that, we have a few student shows as school's starting back for many folks here in the country. We're going to have two education shows back-to-back from students who are currently in college or those who have just graduated, talking about meteorology. So as always, we join you to watch us, and as well, follow us on social media. If there's ever a show or a topic you want us to talk about, it's not hard to get a hold of us. Just send us a tweet or a message through Facebook, and we'll see what we can do to get those shows of interest to you on the docket. So again, have a great week. Enjoy the weather, the cooler weather, and if you have any friends or family along the Texas coast, our thoughts are with them as Harvey approaches with some heavy rain. So you guys have a great week, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday night on the Carolina Weather Group.